Hey, what is up guys? And today we're going to be talking about the 5-star artifact selector that is coming with the Ezran Foundation Day check-in event, basically the anniversary for Epic 7. As you guys can see on your screen here, on the 7th day you'll get a 5-star artifact selector, and you'll be able to choose basically whatever artifact you want, barring some limiteds and collab artifacts as well. So I decided to kind of compile this into a tier list for you guys with all the 5-star artifacts. So we're going to talk about the basic one, including all of the classes first. I do have ones for separate classes in case you want to get more specific, but we'll talk about that in a bit. Let's just talk about the general one first. Also a disclaimer, I'm not really too sure what is going to be included and what is going to be excluded on the selector. So if I do have an artifact here that is not included, you can just kind of cross it out and not go for it, obviously, because you can't. But yeah, basically I'm just going to try to include things that are, I pretty much just put anything that's not limited and that's not a collab artifact on this tier list. So the first thing is the basic or the general tier list. So this is going to encompass every single class and every single 5-star artifact for those classes, except the limiteds and collabs, like I mentioned. But we're just going to look at the best options in a top 3 format and then look at some honorable mentions. So basically, the best 3 artifacts I think are going to be Golden Rose, Rod of Amaryllis, and Elbrus Ritual Sword. So Golden Rose, that warrior artifact, very powerful because it will increase your damage if you're above 50% health. And if you actually dip below 50%, this acts as a defensive artifact because it will allow you to actually lifesteal your health back by doing damage. Now, it's not going to give you damage reduction, which is going to be a little bit scary. If you get put under 50%, you might get sniped out. But usually, warriors have a big nuking skill in their S3, so if they actually get low before their first turn, they can actually heal that all up. This is a very, very powerful artifact for PvP. You'll see this all the time on units such as Edward Elric, Lionheart Sirmia. Basically, any single warrior can use this because unlike Sigurd's Scythe, which used to be the replacement for Golden Rose until Golden Rose released, Golden Rose just increases your flat damage. This makes it very good for units that scale with health. Sigurd's Scythe does pretty much the similar thing, except it doesn't really trigger until you get to 50% health because there's no benefit above 50%, but it also gives you attack percent, right? So attack percent, it can be good on some warriors, but for the most part, especially the warriors that are meta, they're going to be scaling with health, which makes Golden Rose extremely, extremely good, and I think it is one of the top 3 options to choose for. Next, we have Rod of Amaryllis. So Rod of Amaryllis is an extremely powerful Soulweaver artifact because basically every time you use a non-attack skill, you'll heal an ally with the lowest health, and the heal is pretty significant if you get some levels into this artifact. This can be used on Angelic Montrance even for PvE. It makes her very, very good at healing. She can solo heal with this artifact. You can use this on Tamarin, you can use this on DN. Pretty much every single Soulweaver that can cycle pretty decently fast can use this artifact. Even like Emilia, if you recently pulled for her, can use it. You just don't want to use this on very slow Soulweavers such as Rowana, because Rowana only has 1 non-attack skill in her S3 anyways. So you really want to stay away from Rod of Amaryllis for her. But general purpose, this artifact is very good and can be used in PvP as well, which is why I think this is going to be one of the best picks as well. Next, we have Elbrus Ritual Sword. I think this one is going to be the 3rd best to pull for, not because of how good the artifact is, but because of the units that can use it. So the best users of Elbrus Ritual Sword currently are going to be Bellion and ML Landy, and they're both Moonlight 5-star units. But without this artifact, they don't really function that well, which makes this artifact very important to have. And this artifact is super powerful because it can make those units into pretty much god tier units if they get really lucky with the counterattacks. Definitely an artifact worth getting if you have Bellion or ML Landy, but even if you don't, this artifact's pretty good. You can use it on like a Mort or even an Ilyanov, which is seeing a lot more play in Guild Wars especially, and will make them very powerful as well. Now some honorable mentions here. Celestine, good on every Soulweaver that runs a counter build, so Rowana, Destina, Ruel, you name it, Sharoon, very good with this artifact on counter set because it heals when you use a basic attack, and the heal is very good. Bloodstone, very good for PvE. The best ranger artifact for PvE, extremely, extremely, extremely good for Ancient Inheritance, Abyss, Nightmare Raid, basically all the hard PvE formats. Bloodstone is very good, even for Katie's as well. If you just slap this on your Landy or your SSB, she can pretty much solo heal your team. Even for expeditions, for like Earth Expedition for example, if you have this on your bomb model Kana, she can solo heal your team If you have this on a ranger for light expedition, they can solo heal your team. So very good for PvE. Not really used that much for PvP except for like counter set landies and stuff like that, because rangers typically want to use guiding light for PvP because it just gives them a lot more survivability, but still a good artifact nonetheless. Next we have Sigurd's Scythe. Like I mentioned, pretty much going to be a worse golden rose for a lot of situations. It will be better on attack scaling warriors though, such as like Rem if you pulled for her, but for the most part you're not going to really want to use this. I guess Martial Artist Ken is also better on this. But yeah, for health scaling bruisers, it's going to be way better to run them on Golden Rose, so you might want to pick this over it. But if you really want to build your Rem or your Martial Artist Ken for some reason, then be my guest and get this. But still a good artifact, but kind of just outclassed in the current meta by Golden Rose. Next we have Song of Stars, very good for PvE. If you're looking for a good Wyvern artifact because you're struggling with Wyvern, Song of Stars will save you because slap this on your Furious, and Furious gets another debuff on his S1 and his S3, and can solo debuff the boss for you. If you guys are struggling to meet the 2 debuff requirement for Wyvern, Song of Stars is going to be very good. And it's also good in the late game for one-shot hunts as well, such as for like Katie's, and also for Azimnak. Wind Rider, one of the best, probably the best thief artifact right now, because a lot of thieves kind of just have a single target skill they want to one-shot a unit with, and they're just kind of sitting there like a sitting duck. But with Wind Rider, you get stealth, so you get to take one more turn. For example, like Green Sid, if he actually procs Wind Rider after killing a unit with his S3, and then S once and procs it, then yeah, he's pretty much going to get 3 kills with, you know, just one unit being Sid, because S3 usually kills, S1 will kill too, it hits really hard with speed buff, and then you take another turn with S1, even if you don't kill, you get a defense break sometimes. So extremely powerful artifact. Another honorable mention, last on the list, is going to be Secret Art Storm Sword. This is very good on Green Selene, even ML Selene. Good on any thief that wants to cut. Even like Tempest Surins run this sometimes on a fast build to cut with their S3 and silence, because they can now strip buffs with their S3. So very, very good. I think it's a very cool artifact to surprise people in Guild Wars with. And even in World Arena, definitely recommend getting this if you like to use those units as well. Now, these are the best artifacts from the bunch. Now, let's just talk about these artifacts for each class very briefly. So yeah, I already talked about Golden Rose versus Sigurd's Scythe. Basically, Golden Rose is better because health scaling bruisers are better, and attack scaling bruisers are just not as great. Let's talk about the other ones very quickly. So you're going to see this tier list is a little bit different as well for the different classes because it's more specific. We have Extremely Strong, Self-Explanatory, very good. Also Self-Explanatory, just not as good as Extremely Strong. Then we have Strong on 1 or 2 units. For example, Merciless Glutton, very, very good on Jacko, probably your best in slot. And also will be very good on whatever damage dealer you're bringing into Ancient Inheritance, that's Warrior. Instructable Gators, very good on ML Kawazu, who has seen a little bit more play because of ML Landy. And also very good on Hwayoung, which has also seen a little bit of more play because of ML Landy. So yeah, and then we have Niche. So these units will be, or these artifacts will be decent, but not the best option at sometimes, but you can use them if you want your unit to do a specific thing. So for Durandal, for example, if you're baiting in Guild Wars defense, very good to make your warriors more tanky, such as like your Shu. Lennox's Wrath, if you're struggling to read the crit chance requirements on your Alencia, very good. Snow Crystal, good for, you know, just trying to cheese wins in Guild Wars defense. A Little Queen's Huge Crown, very good for PvE. Border Coin, good for Conquer Lilius if you don't have the other good artifacts for her. Cradle of Life, very good for Ancient Inheritance. Uberius' Tooth, very good for Expeditions and Ancient Inheritance. Spirit Putrefaction, good on Teiyu and ML Kawazu, but it's not their best options. And you have Sword of Autumn Eclipse, very good on Arunka. And then Notworth, not going to even talk about these you should just skip over. They need buffs or reworks because they're not that great. Now for the Knight artifacts, we are going to start off with Elbrus Ritual Sword, because we mentioned it, very good on these counter-attacking Knights. And then for the very good tier, we're going to have Holy Sacrifice. This artifact has seen a lot of resurgence in use because a lot of PvP is kind of about the surprise factor, and by having Holy Sacrifice either on your Crow or your Arrowell or just whatever unit can really take opponents by surprise. And if they try to blow all of their skills and trying to invest into killing a unit and they come back, sometimes they get screwed. So it makes it very, very good. Next we have Spear of a New Dawn for strong on 1 or 2 units. It is Senya's best in slot by far, and Senya is a very good pick for Guild Wars and okay in World Arena, so we're gonna put this here. We have Ancient Dragon's Legacy, very good on Lilius, and because Lilius is getting buffed, she actually might be very good. And because of that, you want to run this on her if you want to use her as a Lua counter, which, as we know, they're not a lot of Lua counters. Now for the niche artifacts or knights, you're not going to really use these that much because, yeah, a lot of the times when you're running a knight, you're going to run them on Aureus anyways if they're like a damage mitigator. And if they're a damage dealer, you're going to run them on like Elbrus or I guess, yeah, Elbrus. So yeah, for the most part, you're not going to really run any other artifacts than Elbrus, Aureus, I guess Holy Sack, and a 4-star artifact known as Aureus, which is the best damage mitigating artifact in the game alongside Adamant Knight. And then we have Yulha's artifact, Sphere of Sadism. This sucks. I have like 8 copies of it just from pulling on Yulha's banner. Of course, Smilegate really needs a buff. It's not even good on Yulha because she wants Aureus to get damaged so she can use her S3. Now looking at the Thief artifacts. So nothing is extremely strong for Thieves in my opinion because yeah, Thief artifacts are just not that great. And there's just not really any that just seem super broken because a lot of the good ones kind of do similar things, to be honest, especially the evasion ones, which are probably going to be the best choices. But looking at the very good tier, we have Windrider, which we talked about. Arnel, Rihanna, and Luciella going to be very good on Ran and Peyra. If you actually put them on your Guild Wars defense team and you have this artifact on them and it procs twice, you just basically free win. So it's very, very annoying. It's a lot of RNG built in, but still very good. Secret Arts Sword Storm Sword we talked about. Yeah, also very good option. The only reason why in the general tier list I have this ranked higher is because generally, this is going to be a lot more consistent because, yeah, RNL can sometimes not proc. And I'm going to be honest, Rihanna and Luciella is a defense team artifact because when you're using it on offense or in World Arena, it will feel like it never procs. So definitely a defense team artifact. But still very good in offense if you have good luck. Next, Alexa's Basket used to be the best Thief artifact in the game, especially because Arbiter Villager was very good and the best user, and still is pretty decent, but mostly only going to be used on certain units such as like Tempest Surin and I guess like Blue Kisei. But both those units have better options most of the time. Tempest Surin probably is still very good on Alexa's Basket, but it's a very close tie with Secret Arts Storm Sword. And Blue Kisei is mostly going to be on Symbol of Unity because of her element disadvantage against Earth units, and she's mostly going to be running Guild Wars defense. Looking at the strong on 1 or 2 units, basically we have 2 of the dodge artifacts. Double Edge the Crescent, better for Remnant Violet. Shepherd of the Hollow, still good on Remnant Violet, but good on Savior Aiden. But yeah, these are kind of interchangeable. If you use, Double Edge the Crescent on Savior Aiden and Shepherd of the Hollow on Remnant Violet, you'll still get pretty similar results. Sword of Summer Twilight, very good on Green Villager and Blue Rand, so a very good cleave artifact if you guys are looking for a good one. The niche ones, you're not going to really ever use these. Goblet of Oath is probably the best one of this bunch because it can be used on Peyra and RT and World Arena. But RNL, I think, is just better because if you do get that lucky RNG proc, it can kind of just instantly win you games, where Goblet of Oath is kind of just like a more consistent, but less rewarding artifact, I'd say. Sword of Winter Shadow, not going to be used on too many units. I've seen Ran on this once, or twice maybe. Violet Talisman, only good at plus 30, so good luck. And then Not Worth, yeah, like I said, not worth. And then looking at the Ranger artifacts, so yeah, Ranger artifacts, no extremely strong artifact, mostly because the extremely strong one is limited with Cerese's banner, Guiding Light. But Guiding Light is going to be limited, so that cannot be included. Next, in the very good tier, we have Bloodstone, like we mentioned before in Song of Stars, very good for PvE. And then we have the stronger 1 or 2 units, Unseen Observer, very good on Flan, extremely powerful because of Souls. Also very good on Assaria if you like to run Dark Corvus, Assaria, Guild Wars teams. Art to Surface Missile Misha. This is going to be very good on Briarwitch Assaria because it will allow her to hit Savior Aidens at 100% accuracy. And if your Symbol of Unity is on a different unit, you're going to want this on your Briarwitch Assaria if you use her as a Savior Aiden counter. Sphere of Inferno, very powerful on Bihu. Bihu's making a comeback because he's pretty good into ML Landy, and I think he's pretty strong. Offer You Can't Refuse, good on Elagos. Primarily a cleave artifact, but if you do like to use Elagos, very good. Glow Wings, niche because you can use this on Leica, but you definitely don't need it. Still very good on her. Spatio-Temporal Fan, I think this is the one that gives you stealth with a non-attack skill. Glow Wings is the barrier, and then this one is the stealth. I see people use this on Lua, but you want to use Guiding Light on her because if you get 2 S2s into S3s off, it's usually a win condition, so Guiding Light I feel like is better because Lua is such a strong unit that it makes more sense to protect her than to protect other units, right? And with Guiding Light on your Lua, you can actually be able to counter Zeos very easily and other openers like Acid and Acolvi because you have that stealth. And then Not Worth, once again, Not Worth. So I'm not going to talk about it. Next we have Mage artifacts. So Mage artifacts, similar to Rangers, they do not have an extremely strong artifact because their very strong artifact is going to be Tagahel's Ancient Book for the most part. Tagahel's Ancient Book is going to be very good because it gives you 20 souls, which is amazing. Otherwise, you're going to see a lot of damage dealing oriented not Soulweavers, mages on Chatty, except for like I guess Spectre Tenebria, who really likes souls, so she wants the Tagahel's Ancient Book. But yeah, looking up very good. We have Etika's Scepter, very good on AOL, very good in PvE for Tenebria and for even Ball and Sazan. Very good on Researcher Carrot, who is pretty good into ML Landy right now. So yeah, a lot of good uses for this artifact. Strong on 1 or 2 units only. Spirit's Breath, I feel like this is only used on AOL for the most part, but you kind of want this maxed out, so it's pretty hard to use, I'd say. Abyssal Crown is going to be very good on units such like as Solitaria, Politis, any AoE damage dealing mage. But just keep in mind, sometimes you're going to want souls instead because a lot of those AoE damage dealing mages that have like effectiveness and want to control will have very powerful soul burns. So a lot of the times you want Tagahel's or even another limited artifact. This one, Fairy Tale of a Nightmare, probably very good on Solitaria, right, over Abyssal. So a lot of other options now. Abyssal used to be like very strong, but I think it's kind of fallen out of the meta because we also have a lot of cleansers and effect resist abusers right now. So stuns plus RNG versus effect resist, pretty useless. Time Matter, extremely good for hunt one shots if you're running Vivian. Vivian is probably the best wave 1 clearer in the game for hunt one shots because she has a self greater attack buff, and Time Matter makes it so that she can actually reset the cooldown of it, which makes it very good for Banshee 13 one shot and just a lot of one shots in general. Next we have the niche category. So Bloody Rose going to be used on Zeo on the effectiveness build. So if you have Zeo on a high effectiveness build, Bloody Rose is very good. Black Hand of the Goddess recently got recalled, but it's still a good artifact. It will give you a crit chance and crit damage boost to your units or unit, making them easier to build. Just keep in mind it scales down, so yeah, you're gonna have to play around with your stats for that. Dignus Orb, you can use this on like Tamanaluka, but that's pretty much it. But it is very good on her, but there are sometimes better options like Symbol of Unity, but a lot of people don't like to use their symbol on Tamanaluka, so we're gonna have it in the niche. And then School of Shadows, I've seen some Arias on this, on some weird damage builds, but I do believe you want her on Bastion of Hope for the more effect resist. And the last but not least, we have the Soulweavers. So Soulweavers actually have 2 extremely strong artifacts, in my opinion. So first, we have Rod of Amaryllis, which I talked about, very good in PvE and PvP. And then we have Celestine. So Celestine, I think, is worse than Rod because you need counter set, and it's not as universal, whereas Rod can be used on so many more Soulweavers. But I think Celestine in the late game for PvP will be better if you have a lot of counter set gear and do like to run like Sharoons and just counter attacking Soulweavers. Very good, we have Shamadra's Staff and Idol's Cheer. Shamadra's Staff, very good on Maid Chloe teams. If you do have Maid Chloe, I know Maid Chloe like playstyle is a completely different playstyle where you have all your units on effect resist and you abuse Maid Chloe's S2 and Shamadra. So if you like to play that way, Shamadra's Staff is very good. Otherwise, it might fall down a bit, right? Idol's Cheer, extremely powerful on Soulweavers for PvE and PvP. If you have a Soulweaver in the front, such as Rowana, who doesn't really benefit from other artifacts as much, Idol's Cheer is very good because you can constantly CR push your team. And it's also just good on random Soulweavers in PvP because you can surprise a lot of people because of the random CR push. And CR pushing is probably the biggest way to surprise people in the game, right? So very good in PvP as well. Next we have Fan of Light and Dark, only really used on a mid because of that crit damage buff, right? Extremely good. This will give you a lot of value on a mid. You definitely want this on a mid. If you like to cleave with the mid, probably one of the best artifacts you can choose if you don't have this. Just keep in mind that if you don't have this max, you're not guaranteed that critical hit damage buff. And then niche, we have all these artifacts. I don't want to talk about it too much because Soulweaver artifacts are never bad because they're just all really good. They always have a very good effect that can be used in a lot of areas. Right, Doctor's Bag, the problem is its cooldown is very long. Sacred Tree Branch is it's not really worth investing into effectiveness and effect resist. Sacred Tree Branch, the CR push on one ally is not really worth it over the heal, especially in longer battles, because this is going to mostly be used on like counter Sharoon. But the thing with counter Sharoon is the fights take so long that you definitely want some healing to sustain your team and yourself. So Sharoon doesn't have a heal for herself, which is her biggest weakness, right? So without Celestine, you're just lacking sustain. Touch of Rekos, just getting hit and healing your team, cool, but it won't really ever game change anything. But I guess the heal is kind of nice. It does heal you, I guess. And then Harpa, the random dispel of a debuff. Yeah, it can help in a lot of situations because you can surprise your enemy, but it is RNG. So yeah, definitely a lot of RNG with this one. So I don't think it's really worth talking about too much. So yeah, just to summarize, this is what I think for the artifact selector is worth getting. There's a lot of good choices, and of course, if your account is different, then you might want to prioritize other things. Like for example, if you have everything on this list that I have here, which is a very good possibility because artifacts are a lot easier to come by than units, then you might want to pick a different thing that might be in like the very good tier, or even strong on 1 or 2 units, or even niche if you have a specific use for that artifact, right? If you guys have like a Senya, right, and you really love using the Senya, and you're missing like some of the artifacts here even, you might still want to take the Spirit of a New Dawn because it's so powerful on Senya and will actually make her so strong, right? Also, for example, if you have like a Bihu that you love using and you don't have his artifact, you might want to take his, right? So there's a lot of options that you can consider. This is just in general for pretty much every player, new and old. So just what I think about the artifact selector. So that being said, I hope this video helped you guys out, guys. And as always, if it did, make sure you leave a like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.